Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and over there is Pascal Floor. Say hi, Pascal.
Yo.
That was a go. Where's the hi?
Yeah, so hey.
Recently, I've taken a liking to different ways of saying, like, in our Team Revive group, people come and I'm always like, welcome. So I was like, what's a different way of saying welcome? Salutations or greetings.
I'm so uncreative when it comes to stuff like that. It's the same when you are asked, like, okay, say something on English, for example. Well, especially true in a foreign language. So I'm speaking Danish and not everyone is able to listen to Danish or have heard it ever before because, Denmark is small. So everyone is just like, yeah, come on, say something on Danish. All right, well, what am I supposed to say? And I never know what to say, actually.
Can you say, my name is Pascal?
Min navn Pascal.
Nice. I've been saying, when Charlotte's been getting home recently, I've been saying hola. Hola. And, wait. Yeah. Ahoy. That's what I've been saying. Ahoy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just keeping the spark there.
Coast boy.
So, Pascal, how are you doing? How many weeks have you been dieting now? Is this your second full week?
This is my third week now. Yeah. Third week, and the weight is actually behaving a little bit odd. So not having seen that huge of a drop as the last cutting phase, but I would also blame the sodium and the foods I'm just eating. And I told you already on the voice messages that it's crazy that changing only small variables or details, when you're really conscious about those facts, how much of an impact it can have on your scale weight readings. So just to bring it up now, that one day I had these chicken snacks again. And I'm not having those daily, but they are really high in salt. So I had those. And then I had dinner 1 to 2 hours later on that day. Next morning, I weighed in 1.3 kilograms heavier just because of those two things. Nothing else changed, right? And it just goes to show that if those two variables that are not really, I'm not surprised when people aren't really aware of that, can play such a huge role that other things can have a much higher impact as well. And then you see those massive fluctuations. And people don't need to freak out about those, especially when they can't say for sure that maybe there was a change last day or so.
No, I think that's really important. And it reminds me of, I have quite a few competitors who are coming in towards their shows, like they're coming towards like 10 weeks out. So I'm kind of saying to them that we can't really afford to have any discrepancies in data. And so this is the only time I'm kind of prescriptive over, you need to actually have a meal plan so you know the same foods you're eating, you're consuming the same sort of water, the same sort of sodium, the same sort of timings, so we can limit as many variables so the data is as clear as it can be. Just because it actually creates so much anxiety and stress when these sort of things happen and you have no flexibility because you're so close to show. Imagine if you went up a couple of kilos and you're like 4 weeks out, you'd be like...
Hey, and we both know that in those stages, the body is acting much more severe on those things than in a normal state such as me. Right now, I'm still chubby and stuff. But just imagine when you are like a couple of weeks out from the show, your body is already in a highly stressful state. Changing one or two things and then having that huge impact on your scale weight reading, just as to take that example, there's no surprise that the scale will be super off if you're only changing one or two things, because once again, the body is reacting so much severe on any changes.
How's your body composition looking? Does it look like, do you look leaner? Have you noticed anything there?
Yeah, I can always see it in my face. Okay. So my face is looking leaner, and I have so I hate it when people are saying that, but I have the feeling that I'm already leaner. You know what I mean? No, but definitely. But ever since then, I haven't taken any kind of new update pictures. no new measurements because I'm only doing that on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
The leaner I'm getting, then I'm doing it bi-weekly, and then the more leaner I'm getting, then I'm doing it weekly because then you will see those changes on a week-to-week and day-to-day basis even sometimes. So I think something is happening, but rather slow now, which is all right. I'm not in a rush. I just need to relax. And what I just realized is also that I'm getting better and better in cutting. It's just, I can't even imagine how a competitor must be or feel like when he has been doing this for 20 or 30 years. Because you know it all.
Yeah.
Every scenario, you have gone through those. Mm-hmm. And thus, nothing comes as a surprise to you anymore. You know how your body's reacting. And I'm getting more and more relaxed when it also comes to hunger. So I do remember the time when I started cutting for the first time. Sometimes I had anxiety about getting or entering a caloric deficit because I knew that the hunger will kick in at some point. Now you know that it's part of it, and I rather embrace it. But this has probably also something to do with all the knowledge you gather over time. And I'm not specifically talking about the nutritional knowledge or so, but more so from a psychological perspective. When you know that something is happening and you anticipate it's going to happen, then it doesn't take control over you and it doesn't have power over you. And this is something I always say to my clients as well. There has been a study once where there were, I think it was in Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers,
right?
That Robert Sapolsky is talking about that. There was one group of rats. So two groups of rats, one group got shocked, the other got shocked as well, but always with a signal right before they got that electrical shock. And the response, so the stress response of the rats that didn't know that the shock is coming was chronically elevated. The stress response of those rats who anticipated that the shock is coming because of the signal right before that were not stressed whatsoever, only in that scenario acutely when the stress or when the shock actually came, and then it came back down to baseline. Right? And this is kind of the same when it comes to dieting. When you know, because you are giving yourself basically those shocks, when you know that these periods will come, they will happen at some point, you can relax so much more instead of being anxious all the time because you don't know when the hunger will kick in. And when it does, you're already chronically elevated with stress levels and you're only making things worse.
No, I can completely feel that. Actually, and even we talked off air. We talked over WhatsApp about what stresses me. And that's exactly the thing that stresses me, is not being in control and the unknown. No. I absolutely I guess a lot of bodybuilders are probably like this, and you're probably like this, Pascal, in that you like control over elements in your life. Yeah. And when things aren't in control, you're just like, whoa, this is stressful. I don't like this. Yeah. So, no, that makes sense. That's a really cool insight, because I know obviously studies always on like rats and things. But I know The Stress of Life, I forget who wrote that now off the top of my head. Hans Seil, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The Stress of Life, yeah. I say it wrong, Seil. He talks about like rat studies and things as well with stress, and it's super interesting. Both those books are actually really insightful on stress. So if anyone's kind of looking for them, they're good ones to go for. I think it's interesting.
Don't listen to that as an audiobook, because that's what I did. And it's like you said once, Steve, it is at times a little bit too complicated to listen to it. So I would highly recommend reading it. I've
got an ebook of Why Zebras Get Ulcers, but I'm terrible at reading.
I'm terrible at reading ebooks, to be honest. Books in general is all right, but ebooks, you're just constantly distracted by all the stuff.
Yeah, especially if it's on your laptop. It's just like so easy just to go, what's happening over here? What was I going to say? Yes, so the fact that you've come out of like a lower volume period, now you've kind of coming back to hypertrophy work with more training volume and things. it's actually not surprising to me. I've had it a few times because I've run quite a lot of kind of diet before the diets, then a like steady phase, then another dieting phase afterwards. And this happened even with my own contest prep, where in that first mesocycle after kind of the maintenance phase, I didn't lose too much weight, but visibly things were looking a lot better. And kind of the hypothesis is you've now resensitized somewhat to hypertrophy, and potentially you're actually growing some new muscle tissue. You're obviously storing more muscle glycogen, potentially if the training volumes come up, even though you're eating less carbs. So it's interesting that that's also happened with you, and it's totally the right thing not to stress out, not to manipulate anything.
And everything else is going well.
Yeah, you're hitting steps and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Hitting steps, the training is going well as well. I mean, relatively speaking, and even though the odds of injuries are still nagging on me, but all in all, everything is going well. I also have a different approach this time around when it comes to training. I'm way more analytical when it comes to my own training now. So what I started doing, and this is kind of the first mesocycle where I truly started doing that, is treating my own data like as if I'm a client of myself. Like I look at the data, I go back at the data, even after the training session, I analyze it. Intra-session, I'm trying to always analyze the data of the previous week so that I can make somewhat of a progress that doesn't come naturally, but which I have to force out. Because I think I'm at a stage where the progress doesn't want to happen unless you really try to kick it in the ass and really force it out. Cool.
What are your I don't think we know this actually. What are your main lifts at the moment? Kind of. I know you're not squatting or deadlifting, are you?
I am.
You are?
Yeah, totally. Because I had them in my primer phase. They felt good, and I wanted to keep them in. It will be a struggle, though, over the cutting phase, but I don't know. There's just something about those lifts. I'm absolutely under the opinion that you don't have to do those exercises. And I'm not entirely certain whether I'm really suited for those. But I just like them. So yeah, I keep them in for as long as possible. And once I feel that they need to make room for other exercises, I will not hesitate in doing so. So I'm not really emotionally attached to those exercises as I've been in the past. So yeah.
I think for me, the only exercise I'm probably really emotionally, there's squats, literally nothing else I'm emotionally attached to. The squats, I'm just like, which is obvious when you look at my programming from the outside in. I've had barbell back squats in ever since I finished my prep. I haven't once removed them. I've slightly varied them, but not to a great degree. But they are getting to a point where like I can feel staleness kicking in with them, which isn't surprising seeing as they've been in for a year now. So no, awesome. I'm glad the cut's all going well, and I think there's some value people can take from that. Yeah, in terms of like my end, the only real change for me is I'm just having to force food in because my scale weight has kind of been for probably 2 or 3 weeks. Been like I fluctuate down to like 193, high 192s in terms of pounds. Then I come up to I haven't hit 195 pounds yet though. I'm just like, for fuck's sake. So I've been slowly moving calories up. So I was at like 3,800, went to 3,900, been at 4,000 for the last few days. I'm just going to push 4,200 today, which is it's the legs day. And then I'll go to like 4,000 again on my normal days. And just like, it's frustrating as hell, but I think I haven't been there so many times where I've been at my upper settling point where my body just doesn't want to gain weight. So I don't have much experience with this. Traditionally, I can just put up another 100 calories and that just keeps me going. But there's very rare occasions where I've been at a position like this. And theoretically, from what we know about settling points, the body is just, I know I've been there when dieting, which is like 175 pounds. Around that point, to get below there, I have to do some real serious things that you wouldn't expect because the body's stubborn. But I think my settling point of just over 190 pounds is probably there. And I might have to push. The most I've ever gone to is 4,250 calories, which was like 2014 or 2013. So I might have to go to those heights to get up, which I'm not particularly looking forward to, even though some listeners might think that sounds amazing. doesn't sound amazing to me.
Not if you have to do it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And you want to still eat somewhat clean, in quotation marks. Then it's getting a true challenge.
Yeah.
Are you farting a lot? Can I ask that?
Farts? Actually, I'm not sure I am farting that much.
Are you taking digestive enzymes?
I'm taking bull's bile.
Bull's bile? What is that?
Bile is like the stomach acid.
Okay.
So I'm taking it from bull. And no, I'm not doing that. I
truly believe that you're taking that.
I did it when I was like, I don't know, 18 years old or something. I just bought this. It was from like Holland and Barrett. You could buy like these tablets of bull's bile. And I was just taking this. I was like,
do you think that the guys who invented that they are just cruel and sarcastic bastards who know that this won't do anything at all? But they just know now everyone is swallowing that stuff, and they are just giggling all the time, like, oh, look at those idiots, and they are paying for that.
People just think it's from a bull, so it's like, anything from a bull is like just masculine and big, and it's going to make my life better. So, in terms of digestion and stuff, my digestion, I can think back to my mini cut. It's definitely better when I mini cut. Everything's just better. But as soon as I get into this amount of calories, it's just, I don't particularly feel gassy or bloated, but nothing is as nice as you'd like it to be, which is kind of inevitable. My fiber isn't going stupidly high. I think I eat like 3 fruits a day. I generally have at least 3 veggies a day, normally up to like 5, which is pretty good going. I don't really want to drop lower than that. I don't know if I need to, but I need to keep the food coming in. And for me, it's a real problem if I don't have good meal spread. So I consume 5 meals a day. If I drop down, like if I miss a meal or if I don't eat enough in a certain meal, it just accumulates. You hear people having like 2,000 calories before bed. That could easily happen to me if I missed a meal. I'd have far too much food. And then that's when it becomes a problem. So whenever I hear people like, oh, I'm a hard gainer, I really struggle to eat this much food, I'm just like, get a lot in early doors and spread it through the day, because it saves you so much hassle. So I've just been adding like golden syrup to my morning meal and like just bits here and there to help it get up. But hopefully I won't have to go too much higher than this.
Are you, just out of curiosity, are you adding a lot of liquid calories because you're now saying that you are struggling with getting onto your calories?
Not too much. I have like my post-workout is a smoothie with like a load of frozen bananas and shit like that. So that's kind of liquid calories. And then I have my intra-workout, which is like 200 calories there. Apart from that, nothing outrageously. I have some sauces and things, but I'm just struggling. I struggle if I do what I said and I miss the early doors and get it in early. If I do that, it's not a struggle as such. It's just, I could do without it. If I forget to consume, like if I didn't have my FitnessPal, I'd be eating 1,000 calories too little because I just end up like not wanting to eat. So I can see the rationale behind getting more liquid calories in, and I will go there if I need to. I suppose I have been having some frozen yogurt and stuff, but that's not really quite liquid.
All the ice cream.
But I can't
recently, so I'm not delving into that much, but I just thought about the bulls. The bulls. What was it again? The bulls.
Bile.
Yeah. And supplements and I don't know, stuff like that. And there's always something new, right? And just recently I saw something new that is just hilarious. I don't know. I don't want any kind of igniting the fire of bitching around.
I really want to hear what it is.
Nose strips.
Oh, yeah. These are from Coach... I can't remember. He's Aussie, tiny guy.
I just do remember. So when I was little, I always had football magazines, right? So I was really into Bundesliga, so German football, and I always had that magazine. And it was like, I don't know, do you have Mickey Mouse magazine? Where they had probably like small, there was always something in there you can play with.
Right, yeah.
And in those sports magazines, every once in a while, there was something in there as well. And back in the days, there were nose strips as well.
Really?
To be able to have a better stream of air. so that you really can breathe through your nose a little bit better, especially during sports. And everyone was walking around with that. So I was playing football myself as well, and everyone was wearing those shitty gadgets. And then they disappeared. What a surprise. And now they are back in the lifting realms. So I don't know if anything happened in the realms of the scientific nose gadgets, but maybe something did happen. Maybe it is now a magical gadget, or it turns out to be as shitty as in the past in the 90s.
I've seen them around, and I think it's from this. Yeah, I think it mainly comes from the guy from Australia, who I can't say too much about him apart from he's very small and very jacked and Australian, and he does a lot of stuff with like feet and that sort of. He's a bit
on sounds that. A little bit kinky.
He's got very long hair as well. He seems like a good guy overall. I think he's spreading good stuff. There's a few things that are a bit on that kind of hocus pocus potential side, I guess. But I haven't tried nose strips ever. How did you like it?
Yeah. I can't really remember. I think I tried it twice or so, and I did never feel any kind of difference. And especially when you're a child, it's just like, okay, you're putting it on, and you're well aware of having that on your nose because nothing else is going on in your life, right? So your mind is always just on playing sports, maybe boobs, but I think I was too young for that at that time. So playing sports, playing video games, and that's about it, right? And so you had enough space in your mind to think about it, and nothing really changed. But what I wanted to say, when I'm ranting on stuff like that, it's just entertaining myself. That's basically it, right? Because I know that other people would take it the wrong way, would think that I'm hating on them. Hey, you can do whatever you want. If you want to run around naked with those nose strips on, do that. If that makes you happy, hey, I'm happy for you, right? So this is the way I take. And my type of humor is more so sarcastic, dark, all that kind of stuff. And that's why I like to rant, and I like to be a little bit, of an asshole. But that's not truly being an asshole, but more so a liberal mind who likes to entertain himself with things that are going on in the world.
What did I sent you something recently. Andy Morgan had something on his story, and it made me think of you. And it was essentially what you're kind of talking about there, where people now in this day and age are becoming a little bit snowflakey and a little bit sensitive.
I think it was something like I want to become, so the question was, what do you want to improve or something, right, on yourself or about yourself? And he basically said, and this is just so me as well, I want to find a way to tell people the truth without sounding like an arrogant asshole or so, because too many people nowadays think that they are special snowflakes, something in that realm. And it's absolutely true. And you can see it everywhere now. I mean, it's no surprise that everyone is already making jokes of it, that everyone feels entitled. And that is the problem, that everyone thinks that they are entitled to their opinion, which is, absolutely true, but in some cases that makes you blind for the truth.
My favorite kind of gimmicky thing that I've seen recently, and it's been around a while, is the Theragun. Have you seen that?
What is that?
So it's like, it looks like a gun. It looks like a it looks like a gun. No,
is that the massaged?
Yeah, and it just goes.
Yeah, I've seen that. I had that as a sponsored ad on my Instagram, and I watched it, and I was just like, "Holy shit!"
I really want one, but not because I think it works, just because I think it's hilarious. Yeah, it's like this drill.
Yeah, you can just walk around in public and puff people with that gun.
And I am pretty damn sure it's just like myofascial release. It's not going to really change the game. So it is a funny little gadget. But that's funny about the nose strips. I have seen those coming around, and they probably are one of those fads, I guess, that will come and go by the wayside. It's unfortunate because It's unfortunate, I think, a lot of our audience who are really dedicated, who are really analytical, who almost want to make the most out of every single little thing they can do, they do silly fucking shit that potentially will do nothing. So, like, we wear blue light blocking glasses that we're not even sure they do anything, but we'll wear them just in case. We'll put a nose strip on our nose just in case it'll do something. And I think it's fine, and you're fine to do that. But just remember that it could be stupid shit that you might, in the end, think, what the hell was I doing? And
sometimes you need to ask yourself, is the time and effort I'm investing into that worth the reward or what you're getting out of it? And most of the time it's not. Even the argument when people are saying, like, even if it was giving me only like 1%, okay, there's still a probability there where you are saying, perhaps it gives me 1%. It could potentially not give you jack shit, and then you're just burning your money and you're wasting time, and you're wasting precious time stressing about stuff that is redundant, basically. So yes, I always like this idea of becoming better and better and better, but the thing about optimization, this is something we had just recently a podcast with Mike about. We've talked about it in one of our episodes, that I'm under the opinion that optimization is a fallacy and a subjective illusion, because same as perfection, what you deem as perfect right now may be quite different to yourself in 2 months from now, what you then see as perfect or deem as perfect. Right. And I think that optimization is the same thing. You are chasing a goal that is non-achievable because things always change around you and inside of you. And I'm implying your mindset as well. And because of that, because everything is not a constant, because everything is always changing, optimization becomes a goal that you will never get to.
And you can never really know whether you are or not. This is something I reflect upon often and absolutely hate, having actually found out about it, was the hindsight bias. I can't remember who I heard talk about it, but it's where you see a result and you look at what happened and you assume what happened caused that result. And that's actually a hindsight bias, because you don't know that what happened caused that. You're just assuming, you're putting two together, which is like correlation and causation. It could be something completely different. It could be something that happened ages ago. It's really difficult actually in that case, because a lot of the things that go in the body, there's delayed like occurrences. Like even, why have I forgotten his name? Broderick talked about with muscle growth, he kind of talked about it like a train, in that when you're braking and you even if you're stopping doing what you're doing to grow muscle, doesn't mean that muscle growth isn't still occurring for a few weeks afterwards or something, which I find really interesting, that some of these things, there's like delayed onset and delayed lagging curves. So you just have to be careful. And I think it's important. And I think the point you make about optimization being a fallacy, it's important to remember that you can aim towards what you think might be optimal, but having the realization that optimal is something pie in the sky you're never going to achieve should actually allow you to feel free of that and not worry about it.
Yeah, totally. Because when you really think about it, optimizing it would imply that there's a perfect state which you can strive towards to. And there isn't something like that. I'm really terribly sorry to maybe destroy some bubble or some illusions people created for themselves. There isn't something like perfection. If it was truly the case that there would be something like that, I don't think that we would be where we are right now. We will be much more evolved as a society. We wouldn't just be on planet Earth, I think. We would actually have something like, control the entire universe, because we could create with our technology maybe even the perfect human being. But because everyone is going through struggles, and because of our physiology and in general our biology is actually not perfect, there isn't a state of perfection. It is a subjective illusion.
Cool. Should we get to questions?
Yes.
That was a good chat. So the first question is from Brad Sturgess, who has asked for our thoughts on Myo-reps as a main training strategy for hypertrophy. I know these can be effective as a stimulus for accessory lifts, but do you think they can achieve the same gains as a standard training for the main lifts?
Alberto, what have you done?
Everyone's gonna. As soon as he started doing Myo-rep videos, I was like, everyone's gonna start doing Myo-reps now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So many people are actually asking in our group and stuff like that, as if Myo-reps are something completely new. I do understand where the interest for it comes from, because it's an effective and time efficient method, but as a main training strategy for hypertrophy. So first and foremost, when it comes to something like Myo-reps, they are highly fatiguing from a mental perspective. Second of all, the body will get used to something like that quite quickly, I would assume. Thirdly, it's really hard to keep track on that when it comes to progressive overload over time, unless you're setting limits for yourself. This is always something I do for clients of mine in a metabolite block, because I do implement them as well there, but I always cap it there on the set numbers so that it's still a progress from week to week. So when they are doing their, let's call them down sets, right? You have your activation set, your first activation set that you are pushing close to failure or even to failure. And then you have your following sets that are at lower rep ranges. There I cap it where I'm saying, okay, first week I want you to cap it at, 2 or 3 sets. Second week, somewhere between 3 and 5 sets or so, right? Depending on whether the person is progressing or not. And then I cap it because this still allows you to progress just nicely and to be able to track those metrics without being hit by a train. And then all of a sudden you need to, regress or take a step backwards the next week. Sorry, Steve, I will just continue, okay? As a standard training for main lifts, I would highly recommend you go over to Berger Fagerli's website and read through the articles on Myo-reps, what he has written down there, because it explains a lot why it wouldn't be the best idea to do it on the main lifts, such as heavy compound lifts. And we could explain everything now, but I think the best idea would just head over to Berger Fagerli's website. He was the one, I think, even who came up with the term, at least, Myo-reps, who created that. And I think that he's the best resource when it comes to questions like these. And he has an article that is extensive and quite comprehensive about the topic around Myo-reps, and this definitely also answers the question to as a standard training methodology for heavy main lifts.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Jorge's been on the podcast as well, so he goes over basically this exact question, I'm pretty sure, within the podcast, and gives a lot of those. So if you want to listen to that episode again, give it a refresher. But I can only concur with Pascal's kind of comments on Myo-reps, and it's been my experience with them as well. And the only thing I'd add is that they're nothing special. They're nothing particularly new or unique. There's so many different names for the same sort of thing, like giant sets, Myo-reps, rest pause. Like, they're all very similar concepts where you basically you're achieving fatigue via limiting rest times. That's essentially what you're doing, and you're kind of abusing the why can't I say it? The Hyman's size principle. Is that right? Is that Hyman's, or I can't remember the size principle. I can't remember the guy's damn name.
Henneman's. Henneman's.
I can't even say it. So the size principle, where basically you fatigue all your muscle fibers, you don't let them fully recover, so then you keep going and you're still utilizing every single muscle fiber. So yeah, they're just different ways of abusing that kind of pathway. But like Pascal said, it's not really a long-term strategy, but can be really helpful and effective in certain scenarios. So I'll get to the next question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So next question is from Tyson the Ruler.
Oh yeah.
On Smith squats, I kind of have to, again, I was a bit like Alberto. I seem to have done these and everyone seems to be doing Smith squats now, which I don't regret.
Yeah, totally. They are amazing.
So he said, on Smith squats, when quad growth is the goal, what's better, feet close together and underneath you, or simply using the most comfortable stance so you can move the most weight? For me, the most comfortable stance is similar to my free weight high bar squat. Thanks. So shall I start on this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So
I talked for long enough now.
This is interesting. Well, you completely covered that question. I had nothing more I could really say, which is good. So on this one, I find it really interesting because people have been doing them. And well, actually, the first time I ever saw Smith squats was like women doing either like really wide stance ones or their feet really far in front of them, which makes sense because most women are trying to train the glutes, and putting your feet far in front or very wide, you're going to get the stretch. What were you going to say?
Gymshark pants.
Gymsharks, yeah, with the leggings. So but when I started incorporating them, it was to target the quads, which is also a great way for Smith machine squats because you can get into a position that you can't normally get into with a free bar. Basically, when you see me doing them, I put my feet as under me as possible, which if I stood like that with a free bar, I'd like collapse forward because my center of gravity would be completely off. Something else I've also seen, which I'll bring up during this, is when you have an angled Smith machine, a lot of people kind of often face the wrong way with it, which I can see why, or the wrong way for quad growth, I think, because it kind of allows them to move into the position. So they're going with the angle, whereas actually you want to go squatting against the angle so that you're getting more of an acute angle on and more torque on the quads. And I've messaged a few people over Instagram and been like, just try switching the other way around. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, try it, see how you like it. They're like, oh my God, Steve, this wrecked my quads, which is really cool. So yeah, in terms of your actual question, which I wanted to get to, because an example I often hear is, or an example I often use is, if weight was the only thing like that mattered for growth, you'd lift in very strange ways, potentially. So when we're thinking about quad growth, you think, okay, for me, example, and I'm sure it's probably the same for Pascal, I can lift more low bar than high bar. But when I lift low bar, I'm using so much more glute, hamstring, lower back, all of these other muscles are coming in, and I'm not using as much quad. When I do high bar squats and I have my feet slightly closer together, I come really deep, I'm getting more tension, more load on the actual hamstrings. And when I'm thinking mechanical tension on the muscle group we're targeting, that makes more sense for hypertrophy than doing a low bar position. So in this scenario where you're trying to target quad growth, what's better, doing a stance that puts more mechanical tension on the quads or doing a stance that allows you to do more tension overall? You could argue that potentially doing the stance where you get more on the quads is better. And what I would say is it's not necessarily better. I'd say it's probably just a variation. So you can vary your kind of stance and see how you get on via that and see how things progress. Just like with squats, you can use like high bar, standard stance. You can have high bar with feet closer together and feet more facing forward. It's a variation that's a little bit more specific to targeting the quads. And I wouldn't say one's better than the other. It's just something to kind of play with now and then. That's kind of the way I'd answer it, at least.
Yeah, just one more thing to add, and that is you, of course, always have to keep in mind that every hip structure is built differently. And because of that, sometimes for some people, squatting with a closed stance, feet forward, is simply not possible because the hip socket is not made for that. And you can't force it then because it's not that the musculature or something like this is the limiting factor, but it's bone. And you can't just make room for the bones. So for some people, it's just like simply not feasible to squat really close with feet straight forward. Some people have to have a wide stance, feet outward to make it happen. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out as well.
No, I'm glad you said that because that's something I wanted to bring up as well. I always think it's important to remember when saying close stance or close grip, wide grip, these sort of comments, it's relative to your normal. So if your normal is quite wide already, then inside that is close. Even if, for me, that's not close, that's actually wide. It's relative to your starting position where it's comfortable for you. And completely right, you don't want to start trying to do bone on bone. Yeah. That's just not going to end well. So
you don't want to end like me with a hip surgery.
So next question is from Mark W. should I train with a common cold, push through even if I'm not hitting PRs or miss a few sessions to rest and hasten recovery? Did we answer one of these similarly recently?
Yeah, I mean, we can make it really quick.
Yeah.
So you can always ask the question, are you contagious? First and foremost, if you are, mate, respect the other people around you and stay at home.
No one gives a shit, man. They want their games.
No one gives no. And if you're not, then just assess, can you actually truly progressively overload? If not, when it's just a half-assed gym session, stay at home. I thought myself, I have done it myself too often, that I thought I had to go to the gym and I always paid the price. And in the end, when you really think about it, taking additional rest days will only recover you a little bit better so that you are able and quicker back to progressively overload. And while it may not feel like it in the acute moment, there's always then a positive effect of taking an additional rest day. And you don't have to strictly stick to your schedule or routine of, 5-day split and sticking to the calendar. If you need to take a rest day, even if it's not just from a cold, but also just from overall fatigue, take that additional rest day.
Cool. No, well answered. And I wonder if this is similar for at least our audience who are like dedicated, very kind of not hardcore, but very committed lifters. When you have to ask to deload, you have the answer, you need to deload. I wonder if it's ever a question of, if you have to ask, should I skip this session? Probably 9 times out of 10, that person probably just needs to skip the session.
And I know how hard it is to convince yourself of not going, because especially when people like us, we are so used to our routine and also to our progress. But after all, and eventually when you really think about it, taking an additional rest day will probably do you well in regards to your recovery. And also, you will be quicker back in the gym or into the gym instead of doing both things of both worlds. You're not recovering properly and you're not progressively overloading properly. So you're not getting the best of both worlds. You're only making things worse in both scenarios. So take the rest day.
Cool. So next question is from Wes, and Wes has asked, if muscle damage is doubted to be a contributing factor for muscle hypertrophy, but more mechanical tension is the key factor for this, wouldn't you say that time under tension is more important than most people say? I think that holding every last rep in a set can be beneficial as well for hypertrophy as for strength. Brad Schoenfeld's findings in a recent study were that isometrically holding a rep in the stretch portion contributed to significantly more growth than in the group that didn't isometrically hold the rep. Any thoughts on this?
I have to read that study before making any kind of claims. I haven't read that study, so before making any kind of claims on that one or giving my opinion on that, I'd rather stay away from making any kind of statements to that.
I have a few thoughts on what is actually quite, I'd say, a complex question. There's a lot of things that you brought up there. So kind of muscle damage being doubted as a contributing factor to hypertrophy, but mechanical tension being a key factor. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why that would then presume that time under tension is more important than most people say. And I'm also not sure that Wes has a clear understanding of what time under tension really means, because I think a lot of the time the people that are maybe Wes is thinking are talking as if time under tension doesn't matter aren't reflecting upon the fact that you need to do reps slowly and keep time under tension via that. They're more saying that actually if you just control your repetitions and you end up doing more, you equate time under tension or potentially even get more than if you try and isometrically hold or you try and kind of slow down reps purposely. So I think it's just a clear understanding, and for Wes to have a clear understanding of what exactly time under tension means, because you could lift slowly and have the same time under tension as someone who lifts a bit more quickly but does more repetitions, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, I think it's one of those things that very much when you put it to the side, you're like, don't fucking think about time under tension. Let's just focus on number of hard reps for hypertrophy wise. Like, I think generally that is more beneficial than trying to focus too much on these minor details within lifting. If you're within a certain range of time under tension, in a certain range of kind of the control over your lifts, I think you're fine, and it kind of equates itself. And then in terms of, I mean, also, I haven't read Brad's study at all, but it's interesting because we know that one of the contributing factors to hypertrophy is stretch under load. So is that kind of stretch reflex is kind of an indirect cause of muscle growth, where we get that like kind of a bit of a hot, like when we do an RDL, we get that stretch under tension where it's almost, we're thinking like ripping like sarcomeres apart and things. We know that's an indirect way of like causing muscle growth, or even a direct way. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but we know stretch under load is a powerful way for hypertrophy. So it interests me about this study where holding the stretch is a better way to do it, and whether or not actually that holding the stretch is abusing that pathway more so, where you are holding, like on a calf raise, like you hold that stretch under load and you are directly kind of trying to use that pathway for hypertrophy where we stretch under load. That's why I imagine it's exaggerating, and potentially that's where the extra growth has come, but I don't know. I'm just theorizing.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add something about the time on attention theory, because I don't want to throw around with studies now, so back and forth, because you brought up a study that I feel like I have to throw one at you. But let's keep in mind about the study on time under tension in comparison to a normal lifting cadence. That one was from Brad Schoenfeld as well, where they had a time under tension, or an eccentric portion, I think it was, of 4 seconds or so, in comparison to a normal cadence. And the group with normal cadence was able to accumulate more volume and thus had a better hypertrophic response. So when you just keep that in mind already, just that single study, then it would once again counter your argument about the importance of time under tension, or at least that people don't recognize the importance of it. Because when it is the case, like what this study shows, then if it's a reason for that, then it's a minor one. And then you could always also just make the argument of if you don't have any time under tension at all, then you're not lifting, because time under tension will come no matter what. Then you could also make the argument with another study that looked at explosive concentric. So moving the weight as fast as possible in the concentric. So we know that the eccentric portion of a lift has the highest amount of hypertrophic response for you. But when you're trying to move the bar as fast as you can, this recruits so much more muscle fibers and has a higher stimulus as well, which would absolutely counter the argument for time under tension for hypertrophy. So keep always these studies in mind as well. And this is also so important then, to just try to keep everything in mind when it comes to that. Take it with a little bit of grain of salt, and then also take personal anecdotal evidence to it, because we had recently Eric Traxler on our podcast, and he basically said one thing that many people in the science-based community throw away, or just piss on personal anecdotal experience. However, most scientific studies would never occur without anecdotes. All right, I'm just saying that when you bring up a study, then you have to actually have a good knowledge about the other papers that are out there in that given field, to really then make that argument of, okay, theoretically speaking, isn't there something to it? And also then think about anecdotes as well, because these combined gives you the best idea where we are standing right now, and also to make some hypotheses, to go out there and stand by your beliefs or opinion and get it tested then. All right. But in that sense, I also know that Mike just recently talked about that I don't know if they are working right now on a study on muscle damage that will come out, or he had some interesting insight. I can't really recall what he was saying, but that it seems like muscle damage actually turns out to play a part in the hypertrophic response, even though that it's not really one of the main drivers, but it plays a role, at least from what we've seen so far. And we should always have an open mind for that as well. And this also applies to time on attention, but time on attention has been looked at already a couple of times, and it seems like that it doesn't really contribute to the extent what the bros believed at first. And yeah, without time on attention, we wouldn't really have any kind of tension at all.
Yeah, I think that was well put. And the only way I'd summarize it is, I think it's kind of missing the forest for the trees when we try and focus too closely on some of these minor details, and you could get lost in minutia. When you kind of focus out, you kind of see the bigger picture. I think that's important, and that's why I try and get people to focus on, because you can get really kind of screwed up with your programming. The only other comment I wanted to make that I just found it kind of funny was with this study with Brad, I assume that people that hold isometrically a stretch position would have had way more muscle damage than the people who weren't. So it's just kind of like, interesting.
Yeah, no, once again, if you keep in mind what causes the most hypertrophy, that is the eccentric portion. And maybe there is something to it, having in the stretch position, that it just adds into the eccentric portion of the lift a little bit more, because the muscle fibers are being stretched by a slight more range of motion, maybe? I don't know.
I guess it comes down, that's a lot of the stretch, because there's training methodologies where they use those and they hold stretches within the session, isn't there? And I think that is kind of trying to abuse that pathway of kind of the stretch under load type thing. So it might be something related to that. I'm not sure. But yeah, should we get one more question?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. So this is quite a long question as well. So Rachel has asked, hi, do you guys have any suggestions for helping family members with fat loss? My mum is overweight and has been trying to lose fat for a long time with no success. She says that she doesn't eat much and it's just her slow metabolism. But I know it's to do with her diet and, I've lost track, and the desserts and snacks that she has too much of. I find that it's much harder to help family members and get her to understand that she does need to work on her diet a bit more. Do you have any tips or strategies to help family members who are still in a bit of just carbs or just my slow metabolism mindset? I've suggested doing a bit of tracking, but she seems it's too advanced for her at the moment. Thank you, and thank you for the great podcasts. You are one of the few podcasts I listen to on a regular basis when I travel and work out. Thank you very much, Rachel. So my first initial thoughts, and sorry, Steve, that I'm taking over, is just I've tried it in the past working with friends of mine. Never worked out because they don't feel the same accountability to you, because they know you on a personal level, and your relationship has never been like that. As if you are the coach or you are their team member, it was always a different relationship where both had something to give to that relationship, right? Especially when it's your mother or a family member. I just always found that it was highly problematic. And ever since then, because I just felt like my time is wasted, their time is wasted, and the relationship just suffers due to that, I'm not doing that anymore. I know, however, how you feel, because you care about your mother and you see her maybe on a day-to-day basis even. You see that how she eats and how she lives right now maybe is not the way you deem as optimal for her, and that you would like to help her because you have a fundamental knowledge and you would like to apply it to her. I absolutely see it. It's kind of the so what's it called again? The name Samaritan? No, what's it called again? Samarita. I just know it on Sharon. Just the helper inside of you wants to actually just take care of her, but
you have to ask yourself, and this might be a little bit controversial, but you have to ask yourself, is it that you want to do it for her, or is it that you want to do it for yourself because you think that she will be happier with that? Yes, she's maybe trying to lose weight, but if you do want to do something good for her and hopefully also for yourself, just refer her out, help her with finding someone that actually keeps her accountable, helps her losing some weight in a sustainable fashion, or really sit down, have a chat with each other and say like, okay, if we are going to do this together, these are the things we need to take care of. There's no question about it, and we have to do that. And then also explain where you are coming from, what your intentions are, and why you are caring about that so much, that it's not just something you're discussing at the table, but more so that it is important to you as well. So these are just the options I have for you. It's not really a direct strategy for you in the sense of, okay, do this with the macros, blah, 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 but more so coming from a different perspective so that everything is being put into the right direction.
Yeah, I think Pascal covered this off really well, and I completely agree in that I can relate to this in many ways because not all my family are similar to me, and I have members who have kind of wanted to lose weight and things. But what I think the only message I'd add to Pascal's is that they have to want to do it for themselves. It has to come from them. And they might come to you for help, and that's fine, and you can try and help them, and then you can utilize different strategies like macros, you can utilize different strategies like portion control versus like hands and palms and fists, or focusing on lean proteins and veggies and things like this. But it has to come from them. They have to have that why for themselves. So this is something like we all know it. If you don't have a strong enough why, you won't do the hows. You won't do what you need to be doing. But if you have a reason and you want to get healthy and she wants to kind of really lose the weight and she wants to take it seriously, then she will kind of she seeks help from you, then she'll do it. But if she wants it and she doesn't respect you, or it makes the relationship difficult, which I can absolutely understand because it's very difficult in that situation, then like Pascal said, refer her out, or you can try and educate her via ebooks and things like this. This is things I've done with some of my family members who have wanted to learn more. I just give them like resources that they can try and look towards for themselves, because it will never work if it's all something you want. It has to come from them.
Yeah, and I just Googled that word I was looking for, and it's Samaritan.
Oh, you're a good Samaritan.
Yeah. And I have the feeling that many people are like that. Sometimes, so altruism, so now we bring up the philosophy, is altruism actually something that can occur? So true altruism, that is hardly ever occurring. It may be the case that, which book was it again, where someone rescued just a random person from the trains. So the train was driving into the station, and there was a man lying on the trains or on the rails, and that guy just picked up the guy, but they couldn't really leave the rails anymore, and they just tried to duck underneath the train, and he didn't even know that person, and he risked his life for him. Right? This is maybe altruism because he had nothing to win or to gain out of that, right? But other than that, and when people are then going out to help other people in the world because they have it so shitty or so badly there, are you truly doing it for them, or are you doing it because you feel better doing it, right? And even if it's not really a conscious decision, maybe it's subconsciously making you feel better, that you have the feeling, okay, this is what a good human being does, and that's why I'm doing it and stuff like that. So this is also then, just to bring it back to that situation, we can always ask the question, that's why I meant it could be a little bit controversial, but maybe it is just you do it for yourself, or you want to help her for yourself to make you feel better about the entire situation. And also maybe to be proud of your mom and stuff like that. So it is exactly like Steve said, it must come from the place, from that person, the decision, the action, all that kind of stuff. You can't really force any kind of ideas or ideologies. That's not true, because that can be forced upon people when it comes to politics. But in that sense, when it comes to, okay, you have to look that way because you just have to, right? That's not how it works. And for some people also, just to end it here, the thought is most of the time the most flattering for people, but not what it actually requires them to do. So I think that I had it a couple of times in my life that I liked the thought of something, but I wasn't willing to actually do and putting in the work to actually get there. It was just like, yeah, it would be so cool to be like that, but oh wait, what? I have to invest the next 10 years for that? Maybe it's not that cool anymore, right? So I just like the imagination of me being in that position, and maybe it's the same for your mom. Maybe she would like to actually lose the weight, but she's simply not willing to actually go through the phase of dieting to actually get there.
No, I think that was well put, and I think the only thing I'd say is the final thing is, if to get it to come from her, you might already see her wanting to lose the weight and things. And it might just take you having a chat with her and saying, Mom, I know you're struggling with this. Like, there are some steps you can take. And I know you've struggled with your methods in the past. Maybe you've got some results yourself, or you know some people who have got results. And then you can be like, I'll leave this with you. Maybe it's some education. Maybe it's just some ideas. And then she can take it upon herself to learn more if it means enough to her. To take it on board. But it's really hard when it's family members and people you care about. It's hard to take yourself out of that.
Absolutely. And I have an example of that myself, because my mom, so I'm not really that much in touch with my mom, but she always struggled with her back, with her health in general, and she's not living a healthy life. She never did. And I'm not giving her any kind of advice on that, where it's just like, it would already be the first step of just stepping into the gym like twice per week. It would already make things so much better, because we know by now from the scientific literature how much of a positive impact resistance training has on overall health outcomes, especially for elderly population. So it would already change so much in regards to her health, but it goes into 1 year and comes out of the next, and it doesn't stick around. It's as if you're talking against the wall, unfortunately. And I would love to actually help, because it's coming from it's a good place. And I would assume that's the same for you, Rachel, that your intentions are just good in general. And everything I said, I'm not assuming that this is truly the case that for you, but I would assume that your intentions are good, and then it makes things so much harder to accept. But this is simply sometimes the things we need to accept. Brilliant.
Right, we should probably wrap it up. I could probably keep going and talking about this, but we go into side tangents. So
that's it.
Guys, thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for listening. Very much. And I guess we'll catch you in a week's time. Do we have anything to announce? I don't think so.
Now, the RP seminar in London, the dates are confirmed. So when you want to be one of the first to purchase a ticket, please sign up to our newsletter. Then you will be the first to hear about that when we are giving out the tickets, and then you can save yours. The dates are on the 11th and the 12th of May this year. I know Body Power is around, but fuck Body Power. No one wants free samples of crappy protein shakes, and you don't even get any. See? And also the Gymshark booze is not a booze. The Gymshark is not at Body Power directly anymore. I heard that they had their own building like last year. So also there, sorry to disappoint you, Gymshark isn't around anymore. So What's the best alternative? Of course, go to London and participate at the seminar on the 11th and 12th of May this year.
I think we should get a hashtag going of like, fuck body power.
Yeah.
Body power is not what it used to be.
Yeah,
it's kind of
especially
really
when you're
downhill.
Not getting any kind of samples or free stuff anymore.
They give
and
out,
also
like,
when Gymshark isn't in that building anymore. So what do you want there? Come on.
They just have influencers. That's basically all they have there now. Which,
mate, I've seen also. So last thing, right? Yesterday, I've watched Fire, the festival.
I want to see that.
The party, the biggest party that never happened, mate. It is mind blowing. It is unbelievable.
I need to see
It
that.
is so crazy that something like this can be pulled off, and. Mate, it is so crazy. I was sitting, lying in bed because, I just wanted to watch something, right? And then I started watching it, and I was the entire time like, holy fuck, that is crazy. That is so crazy. This is better than a Hollywood script.
I'm going to try and
Once
watch
again,
that tonight.
life writes the craziest stories, and that is one of them. I can highly recommend watching that. So guys, do that, and then you know better about what we've also talked about the influencers, because they were hit hard by that.
Awesome, guys. Catch you soon. Take care.
Cheers.